General Hospital spoilers tease that just as the Nurses' Ball 2025 kicks off, all of Port Charles is immediately shaken by the unexpected arrival of a figure many believed had long since withdrawn from the town's storm, Liesl. Beneath the dazzling lights, amid applause and upbeat music, Lucy Coe announces the appearance of a mystery performer, prompting the room to hold its breath. Then, none other than Liesl emerges. Dressed in a striking red and black gown, her proud gaze radiating an unmistakable aura of confidence and mystery. She smiles and begins to sing with a voice full of allure, leaving the crowd stunned and emotional. But her return isn't just about a performance, she brings with her a seismic disruption. A cascade of long-buried truths and secrets collected during her quiet withdrawal, all about to explode in a way no one can predict. Liesl had vanished from Port Charles quietly after donating bone marrow to save her niece, Willow. Everyone assumed she had returned to Europe to resume her medical work or simply to rest. But the truth was the opposite. Liesl never let go of Port Charles, she simply watched from a distance, investigating and gathering dark secrets without raising a single suspicion. Classified documents, altered medical records, suspicious connections between characters previously thought unlinked, Liesl has documented it all. And now, she's returned not just to remind the town of her existence, but to expose everything that's been hidden. The change in her demeanor is impossible to ignore. Liesl is no longer the quirky, humorous woman known for her cheeky songs. Instead, she exudes a sharp, cold energy, the energy of someone who has experienced loss, been reborn, and is now prepared to uncover truths that could shake the town to its core. She no longer clings to the image of the generous doctor or devoted aunt. Now, she holds the key to multiple storylines involving Michael Corinthos, Willow, Nina Reeves, Carly Spencer, and even darker medical secrets from her time in Germany after leaving Port Charles. Liesl's changed behavior and style are clear signs. She hasn't returned to reconnect, she's come to detonate a bomb. And ironically, those closest to her seem the most nervous. Nina Reeves, already isolated and in crisis, turns pale at the sight of Liesl. Carly and Sunny grow uneasy as she begins probing into Michael's medical condition. Willow appears confused, especially when Liesl refers to a mysterious third party involved in her life-saving marrow transplant, a detail never revealed before. Who is Liesl referring to? Could a medical secret have been buried all along, and is she about to uncover it? Then the unthinkable begins. Liesl doesn't just bring a warning, she brings proof. She has DNA files, lab results, and confidential medical logs from a German facility, where she discovered that one of Port Charles's most familiar faces might not be who they think they are. Someone, possibly Michael, or even Willow, had their genetic information switched during treatment. Liesl now holds evidence of a high-level medical conspiracy where ethics were traded for power and prestige. And this is the real earthquake she brings. A new disaster is looming, not a murder or a scandalous affair, but a collapse of the entire belief system that was built on blood, sacrifice, and hope. Liesl no longer fears the consequences. As someone who once lived in darkness, she understands that light only shines when someone dares to pull down the curtains of deception surrounding Port Charles. And now, she is that someone. Liesl Albrecht's return isn't just a performance at the Nurses' Ball, it's the beginning of a reckoning. A wave of revelations is coming, where buried secrets and cleansed names are about to be dragged into the spotlight. And those who believe themselves safe will now have to look in the mirror and ask, if Liesl knows everything, how much will she reveal? And what will be swept away in the tidal wave of truth she's about to unleash? The answer, like Liesl herself, may come with a chilling smile and a haunting laugh echoing under the bright lights of the Nurses' Ball. As the stage lights at Nurses' Ball 2025 slowly dim in preparation for the next act, the audience holds its breath. Lucy steps up with a radiant smile and a cryptic tone, announcing the appearance of a very special performer, someone who's stirred up countless past balls with unforgettable performances. And then, to the pounding beat of music like an oncoming storm, a familiar figure emerges from backstage, Liesl. No one expected her return to be this powerful, this grand. Dressed in a metallic black gown that clings to her frame, hair slicked back, eyes blazing with fierce resolve, she stands center stage like a goddess risen from the ashes. Then, the first note hits. And the entire ballroom is swept into a wave of intense emotion. Liesl sings with raw strength, her deep, resonant voice slicing through the silence, a song of betrayal, power, and an unbreakable will. This isn't just a performance. It's a declaration. Each lyric is like a direct strike at those below, those who once doubted her, cast her aside, or believed she was just a supporting character. Tonight, she proves otherwise. She's not just the doctor who saved her niece. Not just Nina's relative. Not just a talented showwoman. She's a woman who has endured the dark, been pushed to the edge, suffered, and been reborn, and now, she hasn't come to participate, but to lead. The audience erupts into applause as her number ends, but Liesl doesn't bow. She stands tall, staring down the crowd, her gaze a challenge. Her eyes lock onto Carly, then Willow, Nina, Michael, and Sunny. No one speaks, but everyone senses something is coming. Her presence has shifted the entire energy of the event. Her role, once confined to familiar boxes, has now transcended all limits. Liesl is no longer the woman who saved her niece or Nina's family, she's now a force capable of changing everything. Backstage, whispers begin to spread. Liesl didn't just return to perform. The photos she carries, the secret phone calls before the event, the quiet exchanges with Lucy, all point to something far bigger. And that explosive stage moment? It was a warning to the entire town, she's back. And she's in control. Those who thought Liesl would remain silent are now worried. Carly feels unsettled. Nina starts to hope. Willow is torn with internal conflict. Michael is tense, not knowing what's coming. Liesl's stunning return at the Nurses' Ball 2025 is more than just a dazzling performance. It's her first move in reclaiming her position in the town's hierarchy. She's stepped out of the shadows, no longer waiting for others to speak for her. No longer playing a minor role in someone else's story. She's rewriting her own role, step by step, with boldness, precision, and undeniable influence. And as the ball continues, no one sees Liesl as just a special act anymore. She is the eye of the storm. And Port Charles will never be the same after tonight. Liesl returned to Port Charles not as a glamorous guest at the Nurses' Ball, but with the aura of a warrior emerging from the shadows, bringing with her a cascade of buried truths and a battle she had long been preparing for. Her appearance initially surprised, and even delighted, many, especially when she stepped onto the stage as a performer at the grandest party of the year, where music, lights, and glittering gowns made people forget the wounds quietly festering beneath the surface. But Liesl was never one to return merely to be part of the background. She came with a purpose, with a plan. And above all, with a storm she was ready to unleash, aimed directly at Carly, whom she believed to be the direct cause of Nina's isolation, her exclusion from the lives of those she loved, and her gradual diminishing under manipulative schemes disguised by strength and authority. From the early days of watching Nina crumble after being cut off from Willow, shunned by Michael, and deeply hurt by Carly's cold actions, Liesl had been silently observing. Even from afar, she kept tabs through private sources, realizing that although things appeared stable on the surface, Nina was being suffocated in a web of relationships tightly controlled by Carly, who constantly sought to manipulate Michael's trust, influence Willow's decisions, and even use Michael's health condition as a means to undermine Nina. Liesl could not accept such injustice. She didn't return seeking approval, she came to reclaim a voice. To remind everyone that Nina was not alone, and that someone was still willing to step out from the darkness to expose the truth. Liesl didn't confront with tears or pleading. She chose the stage of the Nurses' Ball, publicly broadcast, watched by all, to make her first move. After her mesmerizing performance, she unexpectedly delivered a short but sharp address. Aimed straight at Carly, without naming names, yet clear enough that everyone understood what was happening. Nina's eyes filled with panic, Willow froze. And Michael began to look at his mother with growing doubt. Liesl pressed on, step by step, posing questions no one could fully answer without revealing the truth. Why was Nina always excluded from decisions involving the children? Who was behind leaking negative information about her to the press? And why was there always an invisible wall blocking her from connecting with her family, one that Carly herself had constructed? People began to sense a major shift, not only in the relationships among the characters, but in the way they perceived Carly. Once seen as a pillar, a protector, she now appeared as a dangerous manipulator to anyone daring to oppose her. Liesl had come prepared. She carried files, data from Germany, and copies of medical reports indicating that Carly had once pressured a hospital to cover up a diagnosis that could have impacted custody rights. She knew how to wield truth like a sharp blade, cutting through all disguises. And when she dropped the first part of that truth, the atmosphere in the room thickened. Nina was speechless. But her eyes welled with tears, not from pain, but because someone had finally spoken for her. Willow, who had once firmly rejected Nina, began to waver. Michael, torn inside, was unsure whether to side with his mother or his now frantic wife. And Carly, for the first time in years, felt out of control. She had weathered many storms and defeated countless rivals, but now faced someone who wasn't driven by ambition or power, but by unwavering loyalty to family. Liesl didn't care about the crowd's reaction, she stayed focused on her target. She knew that after today, a storm would be unleashed. But she also knew that if she didn't act, Nina would remain buried in silence, and the entire town would keep pretending everything was fine, just as Carly had arranged. A new shift had begun to ripple through Port Charles. Those who once stood by Carly now quietly questioned her. Whispers of a new war between Liesl and Carly started to circulate behind closed doors. But the most terrifying thing was, the explosion Liesl had set in motion wasn't over. She still held truths yet to be revealed, connections between seemingly unrelated figures, and especially a secret dossier from Germany. One that could completely alter how Port Charles viewed a central character. Liesl knew shocks only worked when delivered at the right time. And when that time came, no one, not even Carly, could stop the earthquake she had begun to cause. The battle between Liesl and Carly was no longer just a clash between two women with differing viewpoints. It had become a symbol, the collapse of the old order and the rise of a justice defined by those who had suffered. And once truth was placed in the hands of someone unafraid of consequences like Liesl, only one thing was certain: Port Charles would never be the same again. Liesl's return to Port Charles wasn't just marked by a spellbinding performance at the 2025 Nurses' Ball, it came with an unprecedented burden. The secret information that Britt, her daughter, was still alive. For months, Liesl had lived amid crashing waves of doubt, grief, and fragile hope. She never truly believed Britt was gone, not someone so strong, not like that, vanishing without a trace. Sleepless nights, repeated examinations of reports, accounts from those who last saw Britt, all led her to a single clue: a transmission of medical data from a secret facility in Switzerland that matched Britt's biological profile. That was the first flicker of light after months of darkness. The information, though seemingly redemptive, became an obsession she could not abandon. Liesl couldn't stop thinking about where Britt might be held, who was behind it all, and why such a massive truth had been buried so deeply. Britt's survival was no longer a hypothesis, it was a certainty in the heart of a mother. But she also knew that if this truth existed, then there was a powerful force determined to erase Britt, make her forgotten, voiceless, and evidence-free. And as Liesl wrestled with this storm of truth and fear, Jason appeared. With sharp instincts and unwavering loyalty to those he once loved, Jason sensed Liesl was hiding something. He didn't ask, not yet. He just observed, quietly protective. But one night, Liesl could bear the weight no longer. She handed him a USB drive with encrypted data she had gathered, containing signs of life, recent brain scans, and heart signals all matching Britt. Like a blade cutting through all emotional barriers, Jason understood in that moment, she was still alive. Jason changed instantly. No longer a man led solely by logic or consequence. He became a warrior, ready to burn the world down to bring Britt home. The ghosts of what he'd lost, the deaths he couldn't prevent, the mistakes he couldn't undo, fueled a burning determination inside him. He began moving, needing no orders or verification. He investigated through international criminal networks once linked to the Cassadines, hacked into high-level databases, and traced every small signal Liesl provided. But the rescue wouldn't be simple. What Jason uncovered showed that Britt wasn't just a kidnapping victim. She was a key part of a secret medical project, where unethical doctors and scientists experimented on people with rare genetic structures. Britt, whose complex medical history and phase-on-related genetics made her a valuable subject, had become a prisoner in the name of science twisted into criminality. To bring her back, Jason would face not only physical dangers but a moral choice. How many lives was he willing to risk to save one woman he could not afford to lose? Liesl followed every step he took, filled with worry and guilt. She knew Jason was the only one capable of pulling this off, but she also knew if he failed, Britt might be lost forever in some cold medical bunker, and Jason might never return. But Jason had never allowed fear to stop him. The obsession within him wasn't something to run from anymore, it became his fuel. And then, from the faintest clues, Jason uncovered the coordinates of a mobile lab that had moved from Eastern Europe to Canada. During a raid, he found a deleted file, its last entry clear. Subject, Britt. Status, active. That line was the final confirmation. Britt was alive. And for Jason, that was enough to go to the ends of the earth, to break all limits, to defy every rule, to bring her home. Meanwhile, Port Charles remained oblivious to what was unfolding beyond its borders. Liesl stayed silent, still playing the part of a concerned relative gathering more information. But in her mind, every move Jason made was a countdown. Every passing hour was another heartbeat her daughter might lose. Every delayed second was a chance that Britt might no longer be herself. So she placed all her trust in the one man she knew would never give up. Britt's life, a buried truth, had become the most consuming obsession of two people who refused to yield. Liesl, the mother who turned pain into action. Jason, the man who turned guilt into mission. And between them, Britt, the symbol of everything unsaid, everything not yet saved. And everything that must be won back. Even if it meant facing an underground empire. Even if it meant walking into the darkest of shadows, Jason would not stop. Because he knew, no one deserved to be forgotten like Britt. No one deserved to be trapped between life and death just for being a pawn in someone else's game. And if anyone could bring her back, it was him. Liesl has never been one to stay silent when justice is being perverted, when truth is being lost. Or when those in the shadows begin to use their power to manipulate the fate of others. And now, as Willow, the niece she once saved with her own flesh and blood, begins to be drawn into a dangerous web of error. And Drew, the once resurrected symbol of goodness, begins to show signs of shady and suspicious behavior, Liesl knows it's time to step in. Not to warn, but to strike. Not to counsel, but to root out what she believes is corrupting Port Charles. The madness Willow and Drew are quietly creating is no longer a myth, but a growing reality. Liesl, using her keen intuition and the secret information network she maintains through her medical and political connections in Europe, begins to piece together a very dark picture. Willow, once a symbol of hope, a girl who survived a bone marrow transplant, is now losing her identity, drawn into Drew's growing influence. No longer Michael's gentle sister. No longer the wife rebuilding her life, Willow is now caught up in backroom deals, carefully orchestrated media campaigns, and even shrouded financial misdeeds. Drew, in the eyes of many, is still the hero who survived the nightmare. But Liesl knows that behind the calm face and righteous words is a mind that is calculating every move. She discovers that Drew has secretly used the name of protecting the family to seize assets related to the hospital, exploiting medical charities to legitimize a series of shady deals. And worst of all, Willow herself, with her influence in the medical community and the absolute trust people placed in her, was being used as an unwitting tool in these power plays. Liesl couldn't stand by and watch. Not just for moral reasons, but for the honor of those who had sacrificed to keep Willow alive, herself included. Liesl began to use her influence subtly but powerfully. With the respect she had earned from the international medical community, she demanded that the financial records of the Leukemia Research Foundations, where Drew had been secretly diverting funds, be reopened. She convinced several senior doctors who had worked with her in Germany to return to Port Charles, not only to monitor but also to investigate the recent medical practices involving Willow. She also convenes a secret meeting with the hospital board, presenting them with the evidence she has collected, encrypted emails, wiretapped calls, and bank records that show Drew has manipulated the entire healthcare system in the name of patient protection. While everyone is still reeling, Liesl does not stop. She goes public in a live interview at the nurses' ball, where she states, unnamed but clear, that darkness is disguised as charity. That people whose lives were saved are now coming back to steal hope from others. The words create an immediate storm. Drew tries to respond, but cannot deny what is being revealed. Willow, for a moment, begins to doubt what she has been led to do all this time. And the audience, who once admired the couple, is now divided, falling into utter confusion. The fight Liesl waged was not only to protect Willow, but also to end the dangerous mistakes Drew was making. She understood that if she did not act in time, a new generation would be engulfed by the power hidden in morality. With the toughness and courage that once terrified her enemies, Liesl did not hesitate to use everything she had, influence, reputation, and courage, to bring down the entire system. Every word, every action, every step she took was now a knife aimed straight at the wrongs that were being covered up. And as the storm of information exploded, as the evidence was confirmed one by one, as Drew was forced to face the inevitable questions, Port Charles realized that the shock Liesl brought was not a moment of outburst, but the result of a process of observation, collection, and calculated action down to the last detail. No one expected that the woman who was once considered eccentric, once considered a villain, would now become the only voice daring to stand up when everyone else hesitated. And in the applause mixed with confusion at the nurses' ball, one thing was certain: the darkness that Drew created was no longer a secret, it had been named, exposed, and was waiting to be completely destroyed in the light of the truth that Liesl was determined to bring.